I'm quite convinced that it is a cavity, but not a natural cavity, artificial cavity or chamber under the left paw. Our initial analysis indicates that there is something in it.
For centuries, the Sphinx has crouched on the sands of Giza like a riddle carved in stone, its gaze fixed on eternity. Tourists take photos, scholars debate, but the monument itself has never spoken until now. Fresh seismic scans have revealed a vast hidden chamber sealed beneath its paws, a void untouched for thousands of years. No explorer expected it, no excavation record prepared us for it, and yet the echo returned, a hollow space where solid rock should be. What lies inside this chamber, and why was it hidden in the first place? Beneath the paws. The great Sphinx has endured everything the desert could throw at it. Sand has buried it to the neck, storms have battered its flanks, and pharaohs and emperors alike have ordered repairs to keep it standing. Yet, despite 2 centuries of careful study by archaeologists, engineers, and geologists, the Colossus still had secrets to give. The latest discovery began innocently enough. Teams of archaeologists set up seismic sensors and ground-penetrating radar around the forepaws of the Sphinx. These machines could peer into the earth without digging, tracing echoes through layers of limestone. At first, the readings were routine. Then a strange signal appeared. Beneath the paws, about 15 feet down, the instruments detected a large geometrical chamber. At first, the researchers doubted their own eyes. They reset the gear, repeated the survey, and ran fresh calibration. Each time, the same hollow outline emerged. When they mapped it out in detail, the space appeared perfectly sealed. Dust lay across the floor, thick enough to suggest centuries of undisturbed silence. Tool marks scarred the walls, softened by age. In some places, faint traces of pigment hinted at painted decoration. Nothing screamed treasure. Nothing explained why the chamber existed at all. Yet it was undeniably there, carved deliberately beneath one of the most enigmatic monuments on Earth. The question was no longer whether the chamber existed. The question was, why had it been built, and what story had its builders hoped to hide beneath the paws of the lion-bodied guardian of Giza? To even begin answering that, we must revisit the oldest and most controversial question of all. Just how old is the Sphinx, really? The battle over age. Mainstream Egyptologists have long insisted that the Sphinx was carved during the 4th dynasty under Pharaoh Khafra, around 2500 BCE.
Made your Sphinx in 2500 BC. What on earth are you doing restoring it massively?
The evidence appears neat and persuasive. The Valley Temple beside the Sphinx was built with blocks cut from the same trench that freed its body from the bedrock. A statue of Khafra himself was found there, suggesting a unified construction project. For decades, the Sphinx has been catalogued as a monument of the Old Kingdom, an icon of royal power in stone. But in the 1990s, this neat story was challenged. Author John Anthony West, inspired by earlier observations from R.A. Schwaller de Lubitsch, proposed something radical, that the weathering on the Sphinx did not match wind and sand erosion alone. To his eyes, the deep grooves and rounded profiles looked like the work of water. He suggested that heavy rainfall, not desert winds, had shaped the enclosure.
Tell the difference between weathering by water and weathering by wind and sand. The answer was cautiously expressed as a general rule, yes.
If true, the Sphinx would be thousands of years older than the pyramids beside it, dating back to a time when North Africa was lush and green. Robert Schoch, a geologist from Boston University, joined West in investigating the claim. At first skeptical, Schoch examined the enclosure walls closely and found himself agreeing.
I am convinced that it is a ruin from pre-dynastic Egypt.
The vertical fissures looked to him like textbook examples of water erosion, not sand blasting. Together with geophysicist Thomas Debicki, he conducted seismic surveys and found that the weathering reached deeper on the north, east, and south sides than on the west, suggesting long exposure before ancient restorations. Schoch concluded that the Sphinx might date back to the end of the last ice age, around 9,700 BCE. Mainstream scholars reacted with fury. Egyptologist Mark Lehner and others countered that the weathering could be explained by salt crystallization and uneven limestone layers. They argued that wind, sand, and centuries of burial in moisture-holding dunes were enough to account for the damage. Radiocarbon dating of Old Kingdom mortar elsewhere on the plateau supported a younger date. The debate remains unresolved, but if Schoch is correct, the Sphinx could be twice as old as accepted history claims. And that changes everything about the chamber discovered beneath its paws. If the Sphinx is older than dynastic Egypt, then who carved it? And what kind of world did they inhabit? A monument out of time. Imagine North Africa not as the desert we know, but as a savanna of rivers, lakes, and heavy rainfall. Geological evidence confirms that such a climate existed over 10,000 years ago. If the Sphinx was carved then, it would not belong to Khafra at all, but to an unknown people who predated the pharaohs by millennia. This possibility is bolstered by other anomalies. The head of the Sphinx is disproportionately small compared to its massive body. Some researchers suggest the head was recarved in dynastic times, possibly from the image of a lion or even a jackal into the visage of a pharaoh. The weathering patterns also differ across its body, hinting at multiple phases of modification. Adding to the intrigue are ancient texts. The Inventory Stele, though from a later period, describes Khufu not building the Sphinx, but restoring it. Legends preserved by classical writers describe the monument as already ancient in their time. If those accounts hold truth, then the Sphinx may be less a product of Khafra's reign and more a survivor from a forgotten civilization. And now, with this seismic discovery of a sealed chamber, the debate over age takes on new urgency. Was this void a ceremonial space, a hidden library, or a technological vault left behind by builders far older than Egypt itself? To understand why such a chamber would exist at all, we need to follow the long and complicated repair history of the Sphinx. Layers of repair. The Sphinx we see today is a patchwork. Over the millennia, its body has been repaired again and again by dynasties determined to preserve its majesty. New Kingdom pharaohs added masonry skins, Saite rulers patched cracks, Greco-Roman masons reinforced limbs. Even modern restorers poured cement to shore up fragile sections. In the 1920s and 30s, French engineer Émile Barrès oversaw a massive clearance of sand from around the monument. He documented masonry from multiple periods, stacked like bandages across the body. Each repair tells a story of pharaohs seeking legitimacy.
The Egyptian team are working in the restoration now, trying to add.
Of priests honoring gods, of engineers trying to save a monument already ancient in their day. This layered history complicates the question of the newly discovered chamber. Was it cut in the Old Kingdom, part of Khafra's original project? Was it carved earlier, in an age of rains and fertile plains? Or was it added during one of the many repair phases, hidden away by later hands? Tool marks, plaster traces, and alignment studies may someday answer these questions. For now, all we know is that beneath the paws lies a sealed void, and no historical record explains it. But the mystery of age and repair is only one piece. To truly measure the significance of this chamber, we must look to the climate that shaped the Sphinx itself. Rain in the desert. North Africa was not always desert. Geological evidence shows that during the late Pleistocene and early Holocene, the Sahara was green. Lakes filled basins, rivers cut channels, and heavy rains drenched the land. The water erosion hypothesis argues that it was in this era that the Sphinx was carved. The rounded fissures, the deep grooves in the enclosure, all speak of prolonged rainfall. If true, then the Sphinx is a survivor of a world that no longer exists. When the climate shifted and the rain stopped, the monument would have been buried in sand, forgotten by those who came later. Only in the dynastic period would pharaohs have cleared and restored it, claiming it as their own. This scenario explains why later kings repaired the Sphinx rather than boasting of building it. It explains why ancient texts describe restoration, not construction. And it aligns with myths of civilizations destroyed by floods and cataclysms, their remnants preserved in stone. The hidden chamber beneath the paws could therefore be more than a curiosity. It could be a time capsule from that lost era, a message across ages. If the climate shaped the Sphinx, then so too did the centuries of burial and rediscovery. What stories did the sands themselves preserve? Buried and unearthed. The Sphinx has not always watched the desert with an unobstructed gaze. For much of its life, it was buried to the neck in sand. The dream stele of Thutmose IV.
From the hieroglyphic writing on a stele installed in the foot of Sphinx statue,
Erected between the paws around 1400 BCE, describes how the young prince fell asleep in its shadow when it was half buried. In his dream, the Sphinx promised him kingship if he cleared the sand. Thutmose did so and became pharaoh, recording the story on stone. But the sand always returned. Again and again, the desert reclaimed the monument, swallowing its body until only the enigmatic head remained above the dunes. Ancient travelers sometimes mistook it for a natural rock formation, its features softened by centuries of exposure. Even in the modern era, 19th century explorers encountered only the face protruding from a sea of sand, the rest hidden away like a secret the desert refused to yield. It took immense 20th century excavations to free the monument fully, exposing the lion's body once more. This endless cycle of burial preserved the Sphinx, yet also harmed it. Moisture trapped in the sand weakened its limestone, and shifting winds scoured its surface. Centuries of repairs from different dynasties and modern engineers left a patchwork of stones across its flanks, each scar telling a story of survival. Through it all, the monument stood silent, refusing to reveal what might lie beneath its paws. Until now. The chamber's discovery also revives old legends that speak of secret records buried beneath the Sphinx. Could these myths contain echoes of truth? The Hall of Records. For centuries, whispers have clung to the Sphinx like desert sand. One of the most enduring legends is the story of a vast library buried beneath its paws, a Hall of Records, said to preserve the wisdom of a forgotten age. The tale gained new life in the early 20th century through Edgar Cayce, a man known as the Sleeping Prophet. In trance-like states, Cayce claimed he saw visions of survivors from Atlantis who had hidden their knowledge under the Sphinx, safeguarding blueprints of their technology, records of their history, and secrets of the stars until humanity was ready to rediscover them. Most historians dismissed his words as fantasy, yet the public imagination seized upon the idea. The thought that beneath the Sphinx, a vault of ancient wisdom waited was too powerful to ignore. But Cayce's prophecies were not the first hint of such a possibility. Ancient inscriptions themselves point toward forgotten chambers. The inventory stele, discovered near the Great Pyramid, describes Pharaoh Khufu encountering temples and monuments that were already old in his time, monuments he restored rather than built. Later, Egyptian traditions told of repositories of wisdom concealed under the sands, a place where knowledge of gods and men might be kept safe from the floods of chaos and time. For decades, scholars rolled their eyes. No such vaults, they insisted, could exist. The Sphinx was a monument, not a library. And yet, modern technology has begun to echo what once seemed like myth. Seismic surveys and radar scans,
new technology of LiDAR and Doppler that were able to investigate these sites without really damaging them at all, right?
have confirmed the presence of a hidden chamber beneath the paws of the Sphinx, exactly where legends placed the Hall of Records. Its purpose remains unknown. It could be an ancient workshop, a symbolic void, or even a tomb. But the possibility that it holds texts, tools, or relics of a civilization we have forgotten can no longer be dismissed with a shrug. What if the chamber is not a library at all, but a doorway? What if it is not an isolated vault, but a gateway to something much larger, a labyrinth hidden beneath the plateau itself? Shadows beneath Giza. The Sphinx does not stand alone. It crouches at the edge of a vast complex that has its own secrets buried in stone. The pyramids loom nearby, monuments that have inspired awe for millennia. Beneath their causeways and temples, archaeologists have uncovered shafts, stairways, and chambers that suggest the Giza plateau is as much underground as it is above. One of the most striking discoveries is the Osiris shaft, located beneath Khafra's causeway. Entered through a vertical shaft, it descends into multiple levels, each containing side chambers, and finally opens into a lower room that floods at the water table. For years, this shaft was dismissed as legend, until excavations revealed it in full, confirming that vast subterranean works lie hidden beneath the sands of Giza, and the Osiris shaft is not alone. Radar scans and muon imaging inside the Great Pyramid have revealed previously unknown voids, large spaces that may once have served ceremonial or practical functions. Some of these anomalies stretch for tens of meters, unexplained by traditional archaeology. Could the chamber beneath the Sphinx connect to this larger network? Some researchers argue that the plateau hides an entire subterranean city, a sprawling complex of stone tunnels and chambers built with purpose we no longer understand. Legends speak of passageways running from the Sphinx to the Great Pyramid, of sealed doors and forgotten halls beneath the desert floor. If even fragments of these legends are true, then the Sphinx chamber may not be a mere curiosity, but the key to a labyrinth that ties the monuments together. The implications are staggering. A subterranean network beneath Giza would demand engineering of incredible sophistication, far beyond the simple cutting of tomb shafts or burial chambers. It would suggest not just monuments, but a designed system, a hidden layer of the plateau intended to survive across ages. And if such a system exists, the question becomes clear: who were the engineers that built it? The lost engineers. The underground scale implied by these anomalies suggests a mastery of mathematics, surveying, and geology that does not match the tools historians attribute to Old Kingdom builders. Copper chisels and stone hammers could not have carved tunnels stretching hundreds of feet underground with geometric precision. Yet the evidence is there. Laser studies of stone surfaces at Giza reveal smoothness that looks less like hand-chiseled work.
The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities has announced the preliminary results of its Scan Pyramids project.
And more like machine-polished finish. Spiral tool marks and precise alignments hint at methods that have no explanation in conventional timelines. Ancient texts speak of beings described as gods, teaching humanity architecture and engineering. Perhaps they were not gods at all, but master builders, engineers from an advanced culture whose skills appeared divine to those who came after. Could the myths of Thoth, Imhotep, or even the Atlantean survivors Casey described be distant echoes of real teachers who once shaped stone with knowledge now lost? Genetic research adds another layer. DNA studies show a bottleneck in human populations around 12,000 years ago, consistent with a global catastrophe at the end of the last ice age. If advanced groups had existed before that disaster, they may have been reduced to scattered survivors, carrying fragments of their knowledge like embers of a fire. Perhaps they encoded what they knew into monuments, hoping future generations would one day rediscover it. The chamber beneath the Sphinx may therefore hold more than artifacts. It may hold the last traces of a knowledge system erased by time and calamity. It could be the remnant of a civilization that fell. Proof that humanity's story is not a straight climb from primitive to modern, but a cycle of rise, collapse, and rediscovery. And so the question is not just about the past, it is about the present. If ancient engineers once mastered technologies and lost them, what does it mean for us now, in an age where artificial intelligence is again rewriting civilization? Are we following their path? Are we building wonders only to watch them vanish in the next great collapse? The chamber beneath the Sphinx is silent, but its silence may be louder than words. The future of the past. The discoveries at Giza are not just about history, they are about us. If civilizations have risen, mastered technology, and fallen before, then humanity is not unique, but part of a cycle. The very tool that revealed the chamber, artificial intelligence, may be helping us rediscover what earlier intelligences already knew. The Sphinx could be more than a monument, it could be a warning. Knowledge can build wonders, but it can also vanish. As satellite scans continue, other sites will yield their secrets. The resistance of mainstream institutions shows how fragile our accepted narratives are. The truth about the Sphinx challenges not only Egyptology, but our entire conception of human history. Perhaps the chamber holds nothing but dust, or perhaps it holds the key to a forgotten chapter of our species. So, what secrets still lie buried beneath the sands, waiting for machines to reveal? The Sphinx has guarded its mysteries for thousands of years, and now one of its deepest secrets has come to light. A sealed chamber beneath its paws challenges everything we thought we knew about Egypt, about history, and about ourselves. Whether it holds texts, tools, or only silence, the fact of its existence is enough to shift the ground beneath archaeology. If you've made it this far, thank you for joining us on this journey into the sands of time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that peel back the layers of our past, because the greatest mysteries are still waiting beneath our feet.